When do we all grow up? To answer this question, let's backtrack a little bit and begin at chapter 1. The time span from the moment we are born to adolescence is the period in our lives which we call childhood. Everyone's own childhood is different, depending on factors like which part of the world we grew up in. However, regardless of race, culture, family, or social status, all of our childhoods can be universally defined by some similar characteristics. Purity, simplicity, and a lack of fear is seen of Aminata's childhood in her village bio, where she believed that because she was a freeborn Muslim, she would always be protected and would never be taken away from her family. Children are shielded, protected, and loved by adults. They generally have no worries and go through each day without worrying about their next. Aminata from the Book of Negroes and Amir in the Kite Runner both had carefree, happy childhoods. For Aminata, she was able to roam around in her beautiful village safely, eating kola nuts and playing with the other village children. For Amir, he spends countless days with Hassan reading books underneath their pomegranate tree. My own childhood is one that is filled with traveling, trips to the mall, and riding my bike with friends on the street. Similar to Amir and Aminata, we had happy, stress-free childhoods. Aminata, Amir, and I grew up in different parts of the world, from the Middle East to Africa to Canada. Our lives differed vastly in terms of our language, homes, and culture. All of these different factors greatly influenced the experiences we had as children. Aminata's village was a place where her family was able to freely and openly practice their religion without discrimination. Amir's servant was also his best friend, whom he played together with every single day. My own childhood was filled with constant learning and adapting, trying to learn a new language in a new country with new people. My point is, childhoods cannot be defined by one exact specific experience. Everyone's story is unique to themselves. Now let's go back to the question. What does it really mean for one to grow up? The journey to adulthood isn't straightforward. There are many moments, incidents, and mistakes that weigh into this change. For some people, maturity plays a major role in their journey. Intellect, composure, and self-control are just some of the marks of maturity. It means that we are able to justify our own decisions, act professional, and carry a certain degree of wisdom. For others, responsibility is what propels them into adulthood. Taking care of siblings, the elderly, and even yourself can demonstrate a growth in the mindset of a person. Responsibility is about more than doing your chores every night. It means taking on a role that you are supposed to do and accepting any consequences, regardless of whether they are positive or negative. Independence can also be another characteristic of adulthood. Being away from parents and home, having personal motivations, and the confidence to be out in the world are just some examples. Aminata's turning point into childhood was her journey across the Big River on the slave trade ship. During this time, Aminata witnesses and experiences countless horrors and is forced to put an end to her childhood at the early age of 11. Speaking multiple languages, she steps in as a translator between her fellow captives and captors, catches a baby by herself, and protects Fanta and Famba, the closest people she has left to family. Within these 3 long, traumatic months, Aminata carried more responsibility than any of the other adults on board. She learns how to take care of herself and others for survival, and for the majority of the time had to learn to live alone. When Aminata boarded the ship in Africa, she was still a child, but as she leaves the ship in England, she becomes a woman. Amir's journey to childhood was more complex and not as defined as Aminata's. The incident in the alleyway where he witnessed Hassan be abused is where his journey begins. From that moment, Amir comes to face many trials in his path to adulthood. When he and his father escape to the US, Amir slowly grows to understand decisions his father had made in their past. His accomplishment of finally actualizing his dreams of becoming a writer reflects Amir's independence. However, the guilt of his incident from his childhood clings to him as he ages. Amir is unable to shake it off until he returns to Kabul, Afghanistan for Surat. when he finally brings Sarab back to the States and Sarab slowly begins to heal at the end of the book, the guilt and weight is lifted off of Amir. One could argue that the ending is when Amir finally shakes off the last piece of his childhood. We each have our own unique individual pathways to adulthood that are influenced by the decisions we make and paths we go down. Everyone's journey through life is different, from Amir to Aminata to myself. We cannot rely on an outline to live our lives. We can only hope that we make the right choices and see them all through to the end.